everybody, Maven here, and I'd hate to put out 2 Hunter build videos back to back, but I couldn't help myself because, to put it simply, I cooked. Plain and simple, I cooked. Some of you guys might remember from the last video, I did that Mask of Fealty Infinite Stasis Shuriken spam build. And some of you guys suggested that it might be better on Prismatic, to which I replied, it's way more spammable on Stasis than it is on Prismatic because of the specific fragment and aspect setup. However, where Prismatic does win in a landslide is damage. It can output insane amounts of ad clear and damage at the cost of just a little bit of survivability, and given the right circumstances, it could be the strongest Hunter melee build in the game. But Maven, what about combination blow builds? Isn't that stronger? Well, that's just some not very subtle foreshadowing for what you're in store for in this video, because I was also surprised myself. So without further ado, let me show you what this build is all about. Hope you enjoy. Shout out to our sponsor, Advanced GG, the #1 gaming supplement in the world. Use code MAVEN at checkout for 10% off. Link down below. Thank you. Alright, since we are on Prismatic, obviously we're going to be using the exotic class item, which is kind of the point of going on Prismatic, and that's where a lot of the power of this build is going to come from. So when you use a melee build on another class, you'd typically be using the perks of Inmost Light and Synthoceps. That's typically the standard for Titan and Warlock. But when it comes to Hunter, you could use Inmost Synthoceps, that'd be a fine thing to run. However, typically, a Hunter melee build, or as I call it, punter, would be using Inmost Light and Liar's Handshake, which I believe is kind of bugged. We'll talk about that later. But today, we're going to be using the combination of Caliban's Hand with Synthoceps. A role probably none of you guys had saved in the vault, not even me. The reason there was no upload on the channel yesterday is because I had to hop back into Dual Destinies and farm until I got that role. It was a slog. If you'd hit the like button for my pain and suffering, I'd greatly appreciate it. So Caliban's Hand is where the explosive part of this build comes into play, because powered melee final blows cause ignitions. It's really strong with the melee as spammable as the shurikens. Now, you lose out on some of the spammability that you would get from Inmost Light, but it kind of makes up for it because each time you expend a melee, you're going to be killing more ads with those ignitions, so you have to utilize less shurikens. And your damage is coming from the Synthoceps, because when you are surrounded, you get a 165% melee damage bonus, and if you can manage to hit 200 in your melee stat, you can get 30% more melee damage out of that. In this video though, I'm going to have 167 melee. That is the most I can hit with this build while maintaining 100 class ability. Having 100 class is very important to maximize the amount of energy you get towards it. Class ability is very good because Gambler's Dodge got a massive buff, so you no longer have to be near an enemy to use it. And it's particularly awesome with melees that have more than one charge, such as the shurikens. So when you dodge, typically you get 1 full melee charge refunded, but when you have more than 1 charge, you get 1 1/3 charges refunded. So it makes the shurikens even more spammable. Pair that along with Winter Shroud, so when you slow an enemy by hitting them with your shuriken or dodging near them, it's going to boost your class ability regenerate, and Facet of Hope is going to be boosting your class ability regenerate, so we can just spam a ton of Gambler's Dodges and spam a ton of shurikens. Now back on topic of melee damage, there's one more massive buff contributing to this build, and that is 1-2 Punch. This thing got a damage buff from 100% to 150% and now lasts 3 seconds for its activation, but the biggest buff that it got is that it now works with all melee abilities, as you can see in the patch notes. And that means it works with projectile melees such as our shurikens and such as our threaded spikes. Now, is the shuriken the end-all be-all melee you're supposed to run here? Well, not exactly. It's good, as you saw in that intro clip, it can wipe out a ton of ads very easily. However, the threaded spike is also a very good option. I wiped out a group of those legionaries with the shurikens, but with the threaded spike, I was able to wipe out a group of knights, which are even tankier. And the threaded spike also has the upside of being able to be caught, so you can have basically infinite charges given the right circumstances. Although sometimes when you throw a spike and you anticipate it to go piercing through a bunch of targets, sometimes it just pulls a 180 and goes right back to you. And I have no idea why it does that. It's kind of frustrating sometimes. And it's also kind of frustrating having to keep in mind that you have to catch your spike or else you lose your charge. So that's a little bit annoying sometimes too. So it's kind of a hit or miss melee. And these shurikens are just all around more easy to use. Plus, check out this clip here. I went up against these yellow bar major fallen combatants, and I was able to wipe out all 6 of them just with a couple shurikens. So the shurikens are no slouch. They do some heavy damage. Now here's where we have to compare it against the meta. Combination blow. Whenever somebody does Punter Hunter, they use a combination blow build. Alright, so we're gonna do some testing against a barrier champion, aka Barrel. So with 3 stacks of combination blow along with Synthoceps active and 1-2 punch, our combination blow does 1586 damage. Now comparing that to a shuriken without 1-2 punch, without combination blow, we do 2009 damage. Over 300 more damage for having the cheapest spammiest melee in the game. That's pretty ridiculous. But it doesn't stop there. When we add 1-2 punch to the mix, we can have our shuriken hit for over 2500 damage. That's 1,000 more than combination blow times 3 with 1-2 punch and Synthoceps. Like, it is kind of insane. And where a lot of our damage is coming from is going to be the stylish executioner aspect. So it says that your next melee after going invis is going to cause weaken, but something in game that the aspect doesn't tell you is that it's also just straight up going to buff your next melee. I don't know the exact amount, so don't quote me on this, but I believe it's 150%, because I did some testing with a threaded spike melee, and whether you start from an invis standpoint or from a 1-2 punch standpoint, the spike was doing pretty much more or less identical damage to subsequent targets the spike chained to. And the damage you chain against that first initial target you hit with your melee will maintain that buff going from target to target as the needle starts to chain. So when you start your sequence, you have options. As long as you have biotic enhancements active, you're good to go no matter what you do. Otherwise, you're going to have to find a way to go invis first if you're not in a position to proc 1-2 punch. So that's why it's good to have weapons on your loadout that are capable of making you invis for free, such as the Tenacious Mastery, which is our main weapon with this build because it has chill clip. So basically anything you kill with it is guaranteed to make you invis as long as chill clip is active, because they'll be affected by slow or freeze. However, our 1-2 punch shotgun, this shouldn't be a shotgun. This should be the new Fenutria Farah hand cannon, which is the first ever primary weapon to get 1-2 punch. And you want this not only because it's a primary and double special is not as viable as it used to be due to the new ammo changes, but also you want your 1-2 punch to proc on a weapon that will hit the least hard as possible so you can manage to get your melee off to start the chain of going invis. Now, I don't know where to get this hand cannon. I've never seen anybody with this hand cannon, but if you have this hand cannon, please let me know down in the comments where you got it, because I have no idea. But when you have this weapon, the ideal loadout's going to be Tenacious, that, and then probably something like Dragon's Breath, because it's like a heavy DPS weapon capable of making you invisible. If you like shoot it against a fatter target that you're not about to go run up in melee, you can just shoot a Dragon's Breath, spam Tenacious, and all those ignitions, and slow and freeze. You'll eventually go invisible stylish executioner and start your chain of overpowered melees. Now that was a huge tangent, but back on topic of the damage testing against the barrier champion. So a lot of you guys might think, oh, what about Liar's Handshake? Wouldn't that one-shot the barrier champion? Well, I tried to test it, but it seems to be bugged. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, but it felt like no matter what I did, Liar's Handshake just wouldn't activate the cross counter. I tried getting hit by things, I tried, activating the arc punch. It just didn't want to work. And yes, I know how to use this exotic. I've done a build with it in the past, but it's just not working in this season. I don't know why. If is the same thing happening to you, let me know down below in the comments, but it's just not working for me, so I can't really properly test it. But from what I've tested, feels like the shurikens are just across the board the most consistent thing to run. Like, go back to that clip where I smashed those 6 major yellow bar fallen combatants with 2 shurikens and they all exploded with some nice satisfying solar ignitions. try doing that with the combination blow build. Like, you're gonna have to go and individually punch all 6 of those guys. It's gonna take you a lot longer than just tossing a couple, seeking shurikens that chain off of like 5 or 6 targets. Now, this doesn't mean combination blow is bad. It's still very, very good. In fact, it's a lot better than the shurikens in a lot of situations, just because it's going to be more consistently available since you don't actually expend your charge until a target dies. So you can spam it over and over and over again, and you're going to do a lot more sustained damage to single targets. And the shurikens, they just do a lot better job at just straight up group ad clear, and they can do a lot more burst damage initially to a bigger target. But then after you expend your charges, you're going to have to wait. Whereas with a combination blow build, you don't have to wait. So it depends on the situation, it depends on the activity, but generally, a lot of the time, the shurikens are just going to go crazy. So I think, I'm on to something here. Like I said in the intro, I think I cooked. I really do. I think I cooked. I think this could be something. I tried the Caliban when Edge of Fate first came out. Wasn't too impressed with it, but it seems to be a lot better now. And that's mainly because of the stat overhaul. I think that was a big game changer. And also 1-2 punch now working with the projectile melees. That's like everything right there. So anyways, enough of my yapping. That pretty much sums up the fundamentals of the build. Now let's actually break down the build itself. Starting with our subclass, we already went over things like Hope, Ruin, Winter Shroud, and Stylish Executioner. So for the rest of our fragments here, we got Facet of Awakening to be able to make elemental pickups, such as things like Fire Sprites, Stasis Shards, etc. And that's also going to very greatly benefit our new artifact mod called Refresh Threads. When you pick up an elemental pickup, it grants energy to your least charged ability. So that combos well with Facet of Awakening. And our other new artifact mod, Elemental Coalescence, also synergizes with Refresh Threads because just defeating targets in general has an escalating progress bar that's going to generate an elemental pickup. We got Grapple, which is another awesome thing to pair with the Synthoceps and the 1-2 punch. It hits really, really hard. It's just that we're not paying too much attention to our grenade stat, so it's not going to recharge very often, and we're not running impact induction either, so it's not going to be there much, but it is nice to have. Hits really hard if you need it to. And then we got Facet of Purpose, and with the Strand Super, so that picking up an Orb of Power is going to give us 5 seconds of Woven Mail. And Woven Mail is important for a few reasons. Not only is it a 45% damage resistance, but also it activates Shield Crush, a new artifact mod, so while Woven Mail is active, our melee recharges 25% faster and deals 25% more damage. That's massive. It also procs another new artifact mod called Tightly Woven. So while Woven Mail is active, you gain increased class ability and grenade stats. So like I said, we didn't really invest into our grenade stat. Tightly Woven kind of makes up for that a bit. And now let's take a look at our mod setup. It is more or less identical to the mod setup we had on our Stasis version. So it's heavily geared towards supporting utility kickstart because our dodge is like the most important thing, because one dodge basically equals 1 1/3 melee charges, and since it's a melee spam build, that's pretty huge. So yeah, we just got to make orbs for that, which we can do with things like Reaper. And then on our helmet, that looks like a solar siphon, but it's actually from the artifact. It's the combination of the solar and the stasis siphon put together. So it's going to be good for your Tenashas and your Fenutria Fera, as we confirmed. It's not supposed to be the 1-2 punch shotgun. So when you get the Fenutria Fera, replace the shotgun. But for now, you can kind of mess around with whatever loadout you need to achieve 1-2 punch plus whatever elemental effects you need to proc Stylish Executioner. Anyways, we also got double heavy-handed on our gloves to make orbs every 5 seconds on powered melee final blows, focusing strike to help our class ability cool down more, and then to help support our armor charge, we got charged up on our chest to hold 4 stacks of armor charge, stacks on stacks to double the rate at which we obtain armor charge, and then we got some orb mods on our boots like Absolution and Insulation, again geared towards that class ability cooldown. And then on our class item, we got Powerful Attraction to dodge and scoop up the orbs around us to heal us, and also proc our boot mods. On our helmet, we got Dynamo and Hands On for a little bit more super energy, and on the chest, we got the Stasis ammo generation for our Tenashas, as well as whatever resist that you need for the activity you're doing. And that pretty much does it for the build. I would say it's not the most user-friendly, beginner-friendly build to use. I think it requires a little bit of practice to be able to use it correctly. And I think it definitely requires a Fenutria Fera, which we do not yet have. At least I don't think we have it yet. It might be time gated. I don't know. Like I said, let me know in the comments if you have it. But once we get that hand cannon, this build will be absolutely complete and it's going to be awesome. Because right now the problem is when you go to 1-2 punch something, sometimes your shotgun is going to do so much damage that it'll kill the target that you're intending to use the melee on. But with Panutria, that won't be a problem. Now this is a nice, fun, casual build. You can use it in very fast-paced, ad-heavy, farmy type of content because it just shreds through groups of ads like nothing. But when it comes to the more tougher stuff where you really got to prioritize survival, I think I probably would stick with the combination blow version, to be completely honest with you. Like, I'm not going to lie to your face and say this is the best thing ever. Put away your combination blow builds. Like, I'm going to be truthful and say I would still use the combination blow variant when it gets to the harder stuff, but this is definitely a lot more efficient for the faster paced farming stuff. So if you're a hunter main, consider adding this build to your repertoire. If you want to try it out, as always, the dim loadout link will be down below in the description and also the pinned comment. And if you got any buddies who are hunter mains, I'd appreciate it if you consider sharing this video with them. Maybe this is something they might want to try out. Let me know what you think about this build in the comments down below. Am I onto something? Did I cook? And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Would love to have you here for more Edge of Fate content on the way. Got a lot in the works, so hope to see you stick around for more. And I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.